All right, let's get this party started. Welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Don't forget, if you like the videos, to like them and to share them far and wide. All right, we're everywhere. Do the gram. Thanks for that on Friday, by the way. A little bit of a boost. Don't forget the Instagram, at People's_Pundit. We're everywhere. On X, the same thing. And on Truth, it is at People's Pundit. All right, the best place as always, though, to follow us is on Locals, which is right down here, peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. And for instance, if you did look at it, you would see one of the graphs that we're going to go over today, because one of the topics of these videos that we're going to play, it's like 3 minutes. I don't think I'm going to roll through the whole thing, but one, I'm going to play it to show you the dire situation Republicans really are in, and that they're full of crap when they say things that they say. But also, two, that you got scammed. You know, maybe not you, the ones who are, constantly watching and are smarter than the average bears, but the right in general got conned. And this is a pattern of behavior this guy does all the time. And it's 100% likely that he did it on purpose. All right. So we'll talk about the Republicans' chances, which we did speak about on Friday. What can they do, if anything, at this point, to make a comeback? And then, the vice president's been, forced to say things. I mean, they really have no other thing to do. They have no other hand to play. This is their hand. They are responsible for it. They dealt themselves this hand. So here we are now. And they're predictably left to make tired old arguments that everyone knows they don't work, or at least everyone smart knows they don't work. There are still people, especially partisans, who don't think so. One of the incredible things, before I start to play this video, one of the incredible things that I find almost incomprehensible about the second Trump administration is that there seems to have been nobody who cared about the president at all in his inner circle. I mean, I'm sure they pretend to, and we've all seen the act. All right, well, not all of us, but those of us who have been, we've seen the act. But they actually don't give two about this guy. Like, obviously, they don't care what happens to him in the future. Like, you can't be this stupid. You can't be. You can't be. It's not. I don't know that. Maybe that's the case, and maybe I just have a hard time wrapping my mind around that level of stupidity. But where we are right now was completely predictable a year ago, to almost the day, when we began to see the Israel First lobby march into town because the ceasefire with Gaza was beginning to come to an end and it was expiring. And the lobby came into town. And obviously they had met with Netanyahu already, but it didn't really mean anything. I mean, it came into town in full force. And the domestic agenda began to get derailed. And in Washington, D.C., they cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. This is what noobs, you know what noobs are? Maybe you guys don't understand that term. I keep using it quite a bit. I think it's a gamer term originally, but a noob is someone who's new. They're new. They don't understand politics at a deep level because they're interested. Maybe they think they have some kind of like political instinct or something, but they're noobs and they don't know how the world really works. So they convince themselves, and sadly, in many cases of social media influencing, they convince their poor, unknowing followers that they do know what they're talking about when they in fact don't. And it was always, to the smarter people and the more experienced people, it was always very obvious that if this lobby won, if this lobby continued to get the time of day, and believe me, you could see it on the public schedule of the president, they did get more time of day than any sitting president should ever give any lobby that is lobbying on behalf of a foreign interest of the interest of a foreign nation. And Washington simply cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. So either you get your agenda, which is the entire point of Donald Trump's presidency, or his campaign, maybe, is that you get your agenda, the forgotten man and woman who doesn't have billions of dollars to lobby the president of the United States, or the lobby gets theirs, and the blob is always with the lobby. And it was obvious to people who aren't stupid that this would sacrifice the integrity of the coalition. So if, I don't know, you had a memory that lasted more than a year, you would remember that, God, what's more important here? Letting Democrats get back into power so they can put everybody in jail, start auditing everybody again, start spying on everyone again, start taking shots at everyone again. See, I know we're all supposed to pretend like Iran's this great threat to our safety. The only friends I have that have been killed and mowed down were not shot by Iran. They were shot by crazy leftists. That's always been the real danger. And always has been the danger to every sitting American who just wants to get up in the morning, go to a job that pays them a decent amount where they can pay their bills. That's it. That's all they wanted. And that was the brilliance of Donald Trump. He was supposed to be that guy who understood that. The blue collar billionaire. And if you gave them the time of day to launch limited airstrikes, it would never be enough. And for those who want to get into deeper conversations about this, I strongly suggest that you join the book club. We're going to be doing the Israel Lobby next, by the way. Right now, we're doing A Demon of Our Own Design by Richard Bookstaber. I hope everybody had a great Palm Sunday yesterday. I was under the impression we were going to do book club, and then I had this big thing with my church. I didn't realize it would run that long, and I did get several calls from others who said, look, I'm going to have to do late mass or something. I'm not Catholic, but they are. We had this conversation that we would, everyone would be all right, but apparently a couple weren't. So, I was like, well, then I'm not going to rush, doing this. The kids are having fun with the egg hunt and everything. So that's what happened. But we'll get back into it after Easter Sunday, and we'll get through Bookstaber. We'll get into the Israel Lobby. If you want to have deeper conversations about all of this, because one book we had read is perfect. I really wish every U.S. senator would have to read this book because they're just so stupid and they're so old. They're just not up for the challenges of this time. They're not capable of learning any lessons at all. So, you'll hear things which we'll go over in a little bit. Like Donald Trump is reduced. Let's just get right into it. All right. Donald Trump is now reduced to posting on Truth Social, basically an advertisement to watch like Netanyahu on Hannity. All right. Or watch Mark Thiessen on Mark Levin. All right. By the way, both shows that don't at all reach the target audience that he needs to reach. You can see it. I put it up on X the other day. Like, it's not to make fun of Mark Levin. It's simply to say that, like, if he gets 40,000 of the key demographic, he's lucky. They're all boomers, and they're all certain kinds of boomers. That's not your target audience. But you know who will reach the target audience? The podcasters and the memers who are going to eviscerate Mark Thiessen and Mark Levin. It already started to happen. The people under 50 who voted for you and now can't stand this and don't know what the hell happened to this thing. It's predictable is the word. And it kind of like dawned on me, like they have nowhere else to go. They have nowhere else to make this argument. Nobody will have it. That's the truth. By the way, is it time for our daily reminder? Where are all the uprisings from the newly liberated Iranians that Mark Levin, Lindsey Graham, Dave Rubin, Mark Thiessen, all the neocons, where are the uprisings that they all promised the president would happen if the president just, made good on his promise to the Iranian people and gave them a little nudge? They just need a little help. Well, the truth is, those protests weren't about anti-regime protests. They were about the cost of living, which is the number one issue in this country as well. By the way, cost of living problems that have been caused by the sanctions that we leveled on them. Not to say, you can debate the wisdom of sanction policy all you want, but the fact of the matter is, that's what it was really about, with the agitation and nudging of Mossad. Mike Pompeo, another one, out on Fox News. This is just 3 months ago, where Mike Pompeo was reposting Mossad's account saying that, don't worry, we're in the streets, we're with you, we're with you. Now, see, behind the scenes, they're all pissed. You lied to us, blah, 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 blah. But you can't say it publicly because, God forbid, you go after Netanyahu publicly, or you lambast Netanyahu, or you scold Netanyahu, you scold Mossad publicly. You can't do that. No way. Humiliation rituals only go one way in U.S. politics and the relations with Israel. Only U.S. politicians can engage in humiliation rituals when it comes to Israel. There's no way you could do that to him in public, which is what it would take at this point to even begin to think how to right this ship. The vice president has scolded Netanyahu in public. He has. Like, you lied. Where is all this? What happened to this? But you know what? At the end of the day, you're responsible for governing you're responsible for governing this nation. You're responsible for the conditions, the life conditions for the citizens who live in your country. This was not like they didn't understand. This is what I want everyone to grasp. It isn't like they didn't understand the choice that they had in front of them. So before I play this video of the vice president, and look, man, everybody knows I love the guy, all right? But there's not like I'm hiding it or something. But this is precisely the choice that you made. And I made that video, I reshared on X, which I will not play all of. I'll probably play some of it. But I made that video for this moment right now, knowing full well on the eve of the attack that the sane voices had lost, that the president was in this like mentality where he just was going to, no matter what he was presented with, he was going to convince himself. It was the cognitive bias of the highest order. I'm frustrated with the judges. I'm frustrated with Republicans in Congress. I'm frustrated I can't do this. I'm frustrated I can't get, the Somalis out of Minnesota. I can't do anything here. So you know what? That Maduro raid went really well. Judges can't stop me from doing that. Let's do that. Mr. President, Iran is not Maduro. And by the way, you promised after 10 years of campaigning against stupid wars in the Middle East, you promised you would not do this. Iran is not Venezuela. It will escalate and we will be here. They will close the Strait of Hormuz. They will do that. You know what? Now we'll be in and out in 48 hours. Right, BB? Yup. Even though his own general said, I don't know. You're asking me to tell the future and I don't know. Whatever rationalization they made in their head, understand this. They knew full well that you do this, you're putting Israel first, not America first. You do this, you are sacrificing the integrity of your coalition for the Israel lobby. You do this, and you will never be able to argue that Democrats are an existential threat and they're dangerous and you have to vote for us because they're just so bad. And I'll tell you why. Because if you didn't believe it enough yourself to put Americans first, to put America first, then no one's going to believe it out of your mouth. You would never have sacrificed the integrity of your coalition and started this war if you really believe that. Democrats are going to come in and impeach the president and they're going to dismantle the administration. Yup, they are. Precisely why you should never have done this. Precisely why last year you should have told BB and the rest of them to get the fuck out. And you would have been in a totally different place today. But you didn't. I'm sure everybody had a grandmother here. What did she used to tell you? You made a mistake. Richard, you made your bed. Now you have to lie in it.
We actually do not have 50 senators, not who would vote for the SAVE Act, but who would overrule the filibuster. That's something that a majority of the Senate, you need 50 senators plus me, and I'm certainly on board, 50 senators to actually overrule this archaic rule and pass the Save America Act. Now here, this is the thing that I find so absurd about this. If you remember, Kyrsten Sinema and Joe Manchin, two people I didn't always agree with politically, moderate Democrats, but very good people. They are the people who saved the filibuster when the Democrats were in control of the Senate just a couple of years ago. What happened to them? They were tarred and feathered by the far left. They were ran out of town. So when Mitch McConnell and Lisa Murkowski say, well, we need to protect the filibuster because the Democrats, they're not going to do it, so we shouldn't do it either. The Democrats ruined the career of Kyrsten Sinema for not overruling the filibuster.
All right, first of all, let me just lead with this. Number one, this is the tragedy. This is the tragedy. This is the most talented politician we have seen for the populist right ever. I'm going to say even more than Trump, because he can articulate it. And he had the opportunity to solidify the Trump coalition and to speak in ways that brought over some of the moderates are a big thing. By the way, book's going to be on pre-order very soon. I'll give you the link very soon. I think Locals already gave it to you, but I gave it to you because, I'm not ready to give it to everybody else yet because I'll tell you later. But the bottom line is we focus a lot on this, how the electorate has become more moderate. And unlike past election cycles, it's going to keep getting more moderate based on the data, all the empirical evidence, which we lay out. But they're not moderate in the sense that the policies that they support are moderate. Like, I have a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I'm just not on the fringe with everybody else. As if it's very misleading because they'll say they're moderate as if they're not radical. And they are. They're very radical. And they don't like the Republican establishment at all. They have like these justifications where they can vote for Democrats pretty easily, even though the Democrats are crazy, JD, right? They're going to destroy the filibuster, right, JD, which is exactly why you should have put America first. They are going to destroy the filibuster. They're also going to come after you. And if they get the president, which it looks like they will, honestly, at this point, it does look like we're about to find out how much the president's new neocon friends want to defend him. Because here's apparently something his advisors don't understand. Donald Trump was saved because of Donald Trump's love from his base, his core base, the real MAGA, the real America first. And they feared them. They don't fear you anymore. They never feared neocons who are going to turn on you in a second anyway. I could probably give you 6 to 8 senators right now who are praising Donald Trump and will vote to convict him if the House sends them articles of impeachment. Or the articles are passed, obviously, which they will be, because in a video I'm going to show you in a little bit, I don't really see any way out of the House at this point. It's cooked. Entirely why you should have put America first. The filibuster is gone. So you can imagine where he's going right now with the rest of this. The bottom line is these younger people who are going to continue look, the first of the baby boomers turns 80 in 2026. They're the only ones who care about norms and institutions, right? And they care about the Senates, they run around with their pocket constitution. I'm not making fun of them. I'm just saying, they run around with their pocket constitutions and they care about all that. None of what JD's saying right now, this warning, oh my God, they're going to destroy the filibuster. They don't care. They're wondering why Trump and Republicans haven't gotten rid of the filibuster already to do what they said they would do. Every time they look at the legislature, all they can see is that they can't get a single damn bill passed. It doesn't matter if it's got 80% support. It could have 99.9% support, and Republicans wouldn't do it unless it was backed by the Israeli lobby. War, anti-Semitism, this, that, the other. That's the only thing that gets through. Token gestures and the military-industrial complex. Speaking of which, oh my God, we'll have Joe Kent on Wednesday. Totally forgot. I mean, I didn't forget. I just forgot to say it in the beginning of this episode. And unlike everybody else, we're going to have a different kind of conversation with Joe. Who, yes, I am. Very, very, very... Well, never mind. I'll leave that for the episode. But he's sitting here talking as if anybody below the age of 50 gives two, and when Democrats come in and they destroy it, guess what? Nobody will care. When Democrats come in and they put another justice on the Supreme Court, when they get triple power, nobody will care. Because, by the way, that'll be 2-4 years from now. There'll be even less baby boomers in the electorate then. Guess my point I'm trying to tell you is, obviously, these advisors either aren't smart enough or didn't understand, or maybe they just didn't care. But nobody was protecting these two. Nobody was protecting JD from. Sometimes loyalty means protecting them from themselves. Maybe they don't have the balls. Maybe that's it. Maybe their balls are too small. Maybe they didn't have the courage to speak up and say, Mr. President, this is not a good idea. Maybe these endorsements are a horrible idea because these endorsements are going to dictate what the Congress looks like when they serve up articles of impeachment on you. When they come after your attorney general for allowing the antitrust division to be used as our friend's personal cash register, you better make sure that you have stalwart people with a backbone who will defend you. When they come after you for, what's in pro publica today? The pardon scams. When they come after you for that and ask you why you were giving a fringe social media person tons of money to push pardons on social media for very bad people, maybe you should have people with a backbone in Congress who are going to protect you. When Chris Murphy is in the majority and he gets to ask, why the hell did you manipulate the market every Monday morning and these $1.5 billion trades were made? Sure looks like insider trading to me. When he does that, you should have had a backbone willing to stand up for you. Not whoever offered your advisors their super PACs in exchange for the endorsement. So you can see where the vice president's going with this. And I'm telling you right now, let's let him finish, but I'm telling you right now, this will not work.
They're going to do it. So we might as well do it now to enforce the protection of the American electoral system. It's the dumbest political argument I've ever seen. I promise you, Benny, I would bet every dollar that I own that the next time the Democrats have control of the Senate, they will break the filibuster, pack the Supreme Court, and destroy this country. We have to do it now. Again,
I'm just going to end it there. Precisely why you should have put America first. Because they are going to do all that. And let me just say this. I just, my heart goes out to look, being number two still means you're number two. All right. So people ask me all the time, what do you think the vice president thinks about this? What do you think the vice president thinks about that? What the hell is he supposed to do? What can he do? I mean, it is what the problem is. It doesn't matter to the American public. That's the problem. See, it's really funny because there are a bunch of these Bushies who took over the White House. Their little plan is to dirty up JD, get him all stained with the unpopular policies of the president. And then let's just slip Marco Rubio in there. Even in a neutral to good Republican year, Marco Rubio has no path through the Electoral College. But you know what? It's probably best if the vice president lets them find out the hard way instead of doing it himself in a bad year and getting stomped because of forces completely out of his control. At this point, if you are even entertaining the idea that it is possible for a Republican to win in 2028, you're friggin' delusional. You're delusional. As of right now, and God, look, I don't say these things because I want these things to happen. As of right now, Republicans are looking at an 06-like wipeout, which was followed by what? Does it look like the economy is going to somehow resurge and boom miraculously for you? Has it ever happened during a war in the Middle East? No. It has never happened, but I'll tell you what has without fail. The incumbent party who starts a stupid, unpopular war gets obliterated at the ballot box. obliterated. Speaking of which, and Harry Enton has released the "Aha, I gaslit you" video. He didn't even wait. He just dropped it. 100%. Ha, I 100% gaslit you video.
I would say that House Republicans are running for the exits faster than kids do on the final day of school. I mean, just take a look here. Oh, hello, most House retirements since 1930. So far this cycle, already 36. That is the grand record over the last nearly 100 years.
Hold on. He's right. It is. It's unbelievable. I mean, Robert and I were talking about this. This is 100 years. This is insane. But it is also true. It's not just like, well, he's talking about Mike Johnson says we're going to expand the majorities. Yeah, what else, Mike Johnson? By the way, Mike Johnson actually believed that at one point. So don't, like, I kid you not, because I had a public tweet that led to this conversation, this private conversation. He believed it. He at one point late last year, even going into early this year, he actually was delusional enough to believe that they were doing great and they were going to add to their House majorities. I'm not kidding. But it's not just they're not retirements that are what would typically fuel retirements in Congress. The expectation that it's about to be a bloodbath, and I just don't want to be humiliated. It's not worth it, so I'm out. And it's bad because it creates a snowball. You know, it's kind of funny in A Demon of Our Own Design, right? Bookstaber's talking about how we create these financial crises in the markets, right? And often what happens is it's the core of it is like a liquidity crisis. And then in order to meet those liquidity needs, you have to continue to sell. And selling does what? It puts downward pressure on prices, right? So you just get caught in this vicious cycle, which requires, if you're not selling shares for the amount you thought you were going to get for them, what do you have to do? You have to sell more in order to meet your liquidity needs. And what happens? It keeps falling, and then you have to sell more. And it's just this terrible cycle, and that leads to spiraling, and boom, you got a financial crisis. In politics, it works very much the same way. I think I'm going to get my butt kicked, so I'm going to retire. Well, retirements leave open seats. Open seats remove the benefit of incumbency, which means it's a vulnerable seat. And that leads to an even greater expectation that we're going to do bad. So others say, we're going to do bad. I need to leave, which creates another open seat, which does what? Right. And on and on and on and on. So it actually very much like a financial crisis in the model that Bookstaber put out, it leads to an even greater wave than what they initially expected it would be. We're now at a 100-year mark with the amount of retirements. It's not only driven, however, and I stopped him because it's important to say this, it's not only driven by the expectation that they're going to get destroyed. No. It's driven in many ways by what you hear from people like MTG and privately from others that I'm not going to blow up. The White House treats them like crap. It's just true. The relationship with congressional members, Republican members in Congress, and the White House is bad. It's nothing like it was during the first term. They feel these people are arrogant. They think they're smarter than they are. They talk down to them. They treat them like crap. And they just do, and they know what's coming. And they're asking, because I'm telling you, I've spoken with several of them myself. And they're like, I just don't see the point of sticking around. And by the way, as I'm sure will eventually come out, I did my level best to convince people to stay because the majority is so narrow. If especially one of them were to leave, it will lead to probably 5 others leaving because they are with them. They're in a clique. Which would be catastrophic right now. But we're just prolonging the inevitable at this rate. And they're saying, Rich, I just don't see the point of sticking around because I'm treated like shit anyway. So even if I win and go through this very, high risk of losing a seat nobody even expected me to lose, I'm going to be expected to what? Defend this? It's just a terrible position to put lawmakers in. And I am no apologist for lawmakers. I think most of them, if not, I mean, most of them who are good aren't there anymore and being tarnished by the Israeli lobby, by the way. Matt Gaetz, people you could always rely on to never cave on things like amnesty, to never cave on, for the military industrial complex or the big pharmaceutical lobby or whatever. Like all these people who didn't take PAC money, they're gone. So it leaves these people scratching their heads saying, like, why on earth would I stay around when the inevitable comes? Why was Kristi Noem sleeping with her subordinate? And why were they not going through the proper bidding process in order to keep her cuckold husband, quiet, to keep this one, they don't want to stick around for it. That's just the truth. I hate to give everybody a really heavy dose of truth today, but that's the situation we're in. And by the way, polling, which we'll probably go over Wednesday after Joe, was atrocious. It's atrocious. I said to like a 20-70 split opposing the war, rallying to a 40-50 split isn't even a rally in historical standards for war. How long will this last? It didn't even make it to Friday. Well, Trump is like displaying an impressive resistance to the 30s, but it's only a matter of time. And it has gone into the 30s. And another pollster friend that we all love, who's been like tied up in duct tape for the last 2 months or whatever it's been, also is seeing the same thing. And that is really something, considering the difference in methodologies. There's a little bit more like boomer protection in that methodology. We don't do that. We don't give IVR interviews anymore. We don't do that because we don't need to. We collect better samples on P2P, SMS, and MMS. So we don't need it. So here we are. Let's go back to it. I just wanted to bring that up because it isn't just, we're going to lose. There are people wondering why on earth would I put myself in this position? So again, goes back to what I said before about the president's advisors not protecting him at all. There is seemingly, unlike last time, which even got really thin after they kicked out Bannon because the neocons wanted Bannon gone. At least there was always seemingly somebody around the president who was willing to protect him and protect his, they thought forward. Like, what's it going to be like if we lose in 18? What is it going to be like if this, if that? Like there are people who thought ahead. It just doesn't seem to be any of that. Or they have a really distorted view of what it's going to be like. Are you just going to issue pardons and like that's your plan? Leave JD to hold the bag? Is that your plan? Let Marco roll up. It's Marco's time. Marco has zero chance to be elected president of the United States. Of course, I can't say zero. Can't say zero because there's always a chance. But little Marco is not going to be president. Okay? Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez will be president before little Marco will be president. And by the way, unlike little Marco, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez could win the state of Michigan. Okay? These people are ludicrous. It's just so stupid. What world do they live in? What world do they live in?
My goodness gracious. That actually beats the former record in total, which was 34 back in the 2018 cycle. And that wasn't that long ago. And I do recall that was a very, very good year for House Democrats. The bottom line is this. You don't run for the exits unless you know trouble is brewing. And House Republicans so far believe trouble is absolutely brewing.
Okay, how do you know that? What does history tell us about these types of exits?
Okay, so, I say it's brewing, and sometimes I just like to pontificate, but sometimes I actually have facts behind me.
Let me just stop real quick before he gives you those facts. Okay? Look how excited he is. He's not just excited because Democrats are going to win. This is... I 100% gaslit you last week with these fake statistics that 100% of any subgroup could 100% agree on everything. You fell for it again. It's unbelievable. And you did because of your cognitive bias. It's running amok. It probably is too late to check it at this point, honestly. Let's just kick Qantas to the curb. Qantas must have a response bias. The People's Pundit's literally the guy who authored the modern methodologies to protect against response biases, but it must be a response bias. Let's kick him to the curb too. MAGA's unified. Stupid idiots. Honestly, you have to be a certain level of dumb to be able to convince yourself anyway like that. In order to have a cognitive bias be so impressive on you, you have to be stupid that much. Yes. All the polls who polled the best in the Trump era suddenly don't know what they're doing. The guy who took a beating being the OG critic of the polling industry over things like response biases. The guy who decided to run an entirely experimental tracking poll in 2016 publicly. So if I was wrong, I would have looked ridiculous just to prove I know how to deal with response biases, suddenly is falling victim to response bias. You're stupid. And he knew it. He knew it. He's looking at all of these people. He's looking at all of these sycophants, and he's looking at all of these cultists. Yeah, I said cultists. And he's thinking, I can play these guys on a weekly, man. They hate CNN yesterday. This guy's the greatest pollster. He's the greatest thing since toilet paper was invented when he shows Kamala Harris losing to Donald Trump. But I will show you. These guys are so cultist-like that they will hate him in a second. And believe me, when I tell them 100% of MAGA supports Donald Trump and supports the war, you got played. Like you got played during COVID, by the way. Same thing. No difference.
Let's take a look here. Okay, party with the fewer House retirements since 1982 in midterms. They went on to win the U.S. House 80% of the time. Far fewer Democrats are retiring this cycle than Republicans. When one side runs for the exits, right? I'm doing my best right here, my best Usain Bolt right here. When one side runs for the exits, they lose the House of Representatives. When one side stays put, it's because they think something good is going to happen. And House Democrats clearly think something is good going to happen. And House Republicans clearly think something very bad is going to happen.
Again.
Okay. The party with the fewer House retirements won the U.S. House in the midterm cycle 80% of the time since 1982. We also use a similar time frame when we look and when I reference the modern era, okay? Often we'll go back to like Nixon. Sometimes we'll go back a little bit before. We will tell you that, though, when we do. When it comes to certain things that we're discussing that are very, very, like the realignment, the nature of the realignment is really critical, relevant to that. Then that's why I'll typically say, we're talking about like the 2000s, because there really was that, big change during the Bush era, leading to Barack Obama, of course. But also, I mean, he went back to 82, you go back to 92. The bottom line is it's going to be generally the same. Now you have that stat on top of the generic ballot stat, right? Which we've talked about before. Even if you were to go back, and I've said this a million times, but repetition is key. Even if you were to go back to November before last Christmas, at that point, it was roughly 70% probability that the party that was ahead in the generic ballot not only would go on to win the House vote, but typically, roughly that percentage of the time, it's a little bit more actually, they'll expand their margin from that November to the election over that next year or so by roughly 5 points. So if Democrats were ahead by 2 or 3, it means ballpark, we can expect them to win the House vote by roughly 8. Now, that's not 100% of the time, but it was even back then, roughly 72% of the time. Now we're fast forwarding to this point in time, and that probability is over 80% now. Over his 80% for that. I mean, this is a predictive variable. That's what he's using. There are multiple ones going into the cycle. But the real bad one, the one that Trump decided to throw in the mix for his boy BB, is the starting an unpopular war. And that we can go even further back. And in fact, it's really bad when you just take, I mean, there's one cycle that will be a cycle that's like, it's not the rule of thumb, it's the exception to the rule, which of course is the 2002 midterm with George W. Bush. However, what hadn't happened before the 2002 midterms? We just had 9/11. We just had the fear, and that was it. When was the invasion of Iraq? So even after wars where there is public support, I mean, Bush, if you believe Pew, he started the war and support was lower. It was in the 60s, but it was about 60. But by the time he said mission accomplished on the aircraft carrier, it hit a high of 74%. And that's not to be unexpected because, of course, people are looking at it, mission accomplished, and they think to themselves, oh, okay, maybe this did work out after all, no problem. It was not a mistake. It was the right thing to do. Of course, it wasn't, right? And it didn't end there. The conflict did not end there. It was not what people told them it would be. Kind of like this one. It's not going to be a regime change. It's just 3 strikes. And here's the problem with this war too. They insulted their intelligence for the better part of a year before they did what they really wanted to do. Right? They lied to Americans. It's just targeted strikes on the nuclear facilities. Nothing else is going to follow. I mean, he had the vice president running around saying history will show that the president exercised great restraint. I mean, people forget this shit. Well, guess what? The voter doesn't. You're a partisan, so you forget it. You want to forget it. The voter doesn't forget it. Americans are like elephants, man. They never forget. They retain it all. Read my lips. No new taxes. No new wars in the Middle East. By the way, read my lips. No new taxes ended in disaster. Even after the economy began to recover. A lot of people blame the 1992 election on the economy. It's not true. The economy was already recovering when George Herbert Walker Bush stood for re-election in 92 against William Jefferson Clinton and, of course, Ross Perot as an independent candidate. Why was Ross Perot even there as an independent candidate? Right, because George Herbert Walker Bush lied to the Reagan coalition. And they pissed off the Reagan coalition, the America First part, by the way, of the Reagan coalition. I am MAGA, MAGA's me. No, MAGA was dated back to Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan said, make America great again. It's actually in your documentary. It's just the arrogance of it. The arrogance of it. I will buck history. The problem is, we already know from the cycle Harry just pointed out that there are limits. Donald Trump is great at setting records. He's great at being like, this is a first, or this is the greatest, like in the political comeback. That is the greatest political comeback in U.S. political history. It's probably the greatest political comeback in history. Like I argued with Bannon, Cincinnatus didn't even have all of the obstacles that Donald Trump had. I mean, back then, all you needed to do was have the loyalty of a couple armed people. That was about it, you know? This is totally different. All the halls of power were trying to put the man in jail. We're opposing him, trying to defeat him. It was definitely the greatest political comeback. Far greater than Richard Nixon, who also had a great political comeback and ruined it over his desire to be liked by all the wrong people. All of the people who opposed him and none of the people who are responsible for him being in office. So because of this, Donald Trump will be able to test the loyalty of his new friends. When all of this stuff comes out, I wonder if Mark Levin will still advocate for him. Probably, because so much is related to Israel. The pardons, disgusting. I mean, I suppose he won't argue against those because, you know, his new buddy, who he once called a fringe nutcase, by the way. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see where Lindsey Graham is. I guess it depends how much Lindsey gets, right? All right, speaking of which, let me just show you how devastating wars are before we go here. And then actually, I do have to compare the MAGA of America First thing. This is the approval by issues. Locals, bear with me. You've seen this. This is Trump's, every month we'll do is overall in our benchmark poll. We'll do benchmark, meaning the one we release publicly. Every month we'll do his overall, the shift between it, et cetera, et cetera. Laura Janine just called back. Can you call her? And do that in real quick from Kahuna. Thank you. We'll do his overall, and we'll do the key issues that we've been doing, right? So overall, it's like the presidential scorecard on 10 different grades. And there are domestic issues. There are foreign policy things, right? And we'll just throw them up. Situations in, right? And the change over the month. But before I do that, I want to show you what the change, I want to have, just let me get this handy real quick, because they've been decisively negative trends for months now. So what we do know is that the change you're going to be seeing that goes on the screen right now is not the totality of the change, of course, right? In February, for instance, in January, I'll read you the changes from there as well when we put them up. All right. Here is the benchmark from March. Overall, 42.3%. Approved, disapproved, 55.7%. That 55.7 marks a high in benchmark polling for disapproval. It is technically, if I remember correctly, 1/10 of a percentage point. Nope. I'm wrong. That is a new low for the benchmark as well. I thought we had a 41. Did we not? Huh. Well, I mean, I may be thinking about now on the benchmark public polling, it's not. That is the low. Okay, so that's the new low. That's the new high. We have lower in private polling, but you know, it's in between the benchmarks. We don't release all of that, so not publicly. All right, so there you have it. Widest spread, which is negative 13.4 or disapprove 13.4. The change in the overall over the month is negative 1.2, but in the month prior, for instance, the overall change was negative 5.1. The month before that, in January, was negative 4.2. So you see, obviously, the trend is just getting worse and worse and worse. And if you go to Big Data Poll, you can go look up the trend for Donald Trump. In the press release, we put up the trend line that's different from the project trends, which you'll find on the front page. But this one, the one we put up in the press release, is by key events. So you'll be able to see, for instance, Trump hits his all-time high. Here's where the Gaza ceasefire ends. The administration pivots to foreign policy, and there's criticisms rise of the Epstein issue. The Israel lobby diverts the attention. I mean, I'm showing you this on purpose because there's a very, very key theme to Donald Trump's administration. He ran on putting America first and caring about domestic issues. And that we've had a bunch of stupid people in the ruling class destroy this country by giving our blood and our treasure in stupid foreign ventures and foreign wars that just did nothing but bleed us. And it's time for someone to care about you and to focus on you. Obviously, that was going to win. Obviously. That's why we started the White House Focus Tracker, by the way, because we were hearing in our elaborated interviews over and over and over the same theme over and over. How could he do this? This is totally the opposite of what he said. And by the way, we tend to focus on men, especially young MAGA men. But the fact of the matter is the biggest swing away from Donald Trump so far is with 18 to 29-year-old women who supported him. They currently are negative 43 points net swing against him on approval. And yes, vote share is not the same thing as approval. Don't forget that. While people do that, that is apples to oranges, but it still does tell you that while men are like negative 15 now in that age category, women are negative 42 or 43 now this month, I think it is. But either way, yes, men are critical to their coalition, but you just don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, folks, you know? All right, but I put that up with the key events because it was important to show you how these events that transpired did impact his approval rating, because there's this very stupid idea that it's just the economy, and if the economy, if the economy got better, everything would be right again. No, that's not true. It's simply not true. If the economy rebounded and was red hot right now, it would certainly help him. But he has lost elements of its coalition due to very specific things. And by the way, women actually cared more about the Epstein stuff than the men did. And if you want to know more about how the Epstein situation impacted Donald Trump's approval rating, go and check out the 1776 project that poll we did with Robert, and we did much more. We didn't cover it a whole lot, but it is now in the crosstabs. We did much more depth about the Epstein stuff. It's brutal. It's absolutely brutal. All right, so then Donald Trump and Elon Musk have a falling out. You can see how it goes, right? Economy and jobs. Interesting here. Last month, the percentage of people who said that they approved of how he was handling the economy actually rose from 42.1 to 43.2, but disapproval rose from 52.5 to 54.1. So it's a fair, a half a point negative swing, but overall, actually, it's astonishing between that overall improvements on immigration and on crime and the situation in Venezuela. He actually saw improvement, but it was all completely wiped away by pretty significant declines over how he's handling Israel and how he's handling the situation in Iran. So I've said this a lot, and this is a great example for me to, and by the way, look at foreign policy, -5, basically. Foreign policy cannot save you, Mr. President. Foreign policy cannot save you. This is politics 101, but it can destroy you. That is a rule of thumb in American politics. George Herbert Walker Bush, who I just referenced along with the 92 election, truly believed that the first Gulf War would carry the day for him. The economy was all, and they believed he was shocked when he lost. He really didn't think he was going to lose. And he basically cried to his son, the future president, "I thought the war would carry us. I thought the war would carry us." I guess he didn't read enough books. Prescott didn't have enough in the library, in the family library for you, bro. Wars don't save you. There's no upside at all, but they can destroy you. And that is even more true now in the post 9/11 era. We came out of the other end of the debate on Vietnam and the wisdom of war and the domino theory, which was the predominant myth of empire in this country, believed by boomers, before the madman theory, which is we can't get them all. Mullahs can't have a nuke. They'll kill everybody. That's a myth. States care about security and states care about survival. They are rational actors in an international system that is very predictable. It's studied by an entire school in academia called international relations. Again, join the book club and you would learn some of this stuff. It's really fascinating. Why Kim Jong-un was a madman? Why didn't he nuke everybody yet? Why is Seoul still there? Why is Japan still there? Kim Jong-un's a madman. No, he's not. He may be crazy, but it doesn't mean he's irrational. And rational doesn't always mean wise. But I'm going to get there. Don't let me jump too far ahead of it. So in any event, the lesson here, the painful lesson of the Trump administration is foreign policy can ruin you, but it cannot help you. As I told Matt Gaetz a couple of weeks ago on his show, there is no upside. There is only downside. Immigration and border security actually improved a little bit, but I expect that will reverse when the country finds out that Donald Trump is stopping deportations and stopping a bunch of other, what, the media used to call draconian immigration policies, but obviously not draconian according to the spectrum, the ideological spectrum in this country, since they absolutely majority still does approve of mass deportations. It's just how he was doing it that was the problem. Couple minor changes and he would have been able to continue his business as usual. But the reason why they are shutting down so many of these initiatives is because of what I told you before. And I told you last year, Washington cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. You either get war or you get your domestic policy. That's it. He has no time to deal with the nuances of that shit. So it doesn't cost him any more political capital. He's scrapping it. That's what happens. And if you weren't a noob, you would know that. Go back and look at that interview I just referenced with Gates. Look at his face when I say that. Matt, I don't have to tell you. Washington can't do both. You either get these foreign ventures, these follies, or you get a domestic agenda. Look at his face when I say that. He doesn't know. Everybody knows, except for noobs and wannabes who sit and tweet on Twitter all day. Most predictable political disaster ever. Foreign policy, 41.5 to 54.9. That's a massive crater, even though it fell by two. The overall change from this month is 4.7. That's on top of the 1.7 change the month prior and the 5-point change the month before that. And he fell from 42.9. His disapproval was only 51.6. Of course, guys, when you start an unpopular war that the country repeatedly tells you it doesn't want, and you do it because you were dog walked by an unpopular ally, expect your disapproval to go to negative 13.4. Meanwhile, crime and safety actually improved. He's damn near close to being positive on immigration and crime and safety, but it doesn't even matter. It improved overall about 2.1 actually. 45% approved, 50% disapproved. The Russo-Ukrainian war flopped another 3 points. We're now down to 36 flat, 56.1 opposed. Why? Why is he taking such a beating on that? Why? Because Donald Trump said how many times I will end the war in Russia in 48 hours. Did he? No, he sent them more bombs. Lindsey Graham got his heart on and walked out of the White House. Israel-Palestinian conflict, negative 20, along with the Russo-Ukrainian war. It's actually negative 19.7. Russo-Ukrainian's negative 20.1. That's a 6.5 point further deterioration on top of the 3 the month before and the 4 the month before that. This is a massive dive. It's a big dive for us. We don't usually gyrate 20, 30 points like other pollsters do. That's because we know how to guard against response bias, unlike so many others with their 100%. We actually do, which is why we don't gyrate back and forth like other pollsters do. Typically increments. A 7-point swing in a month is rather dramatic for us. It's declining more so than others that are trending down because it's related to Israel and the country doesn't like them anymore. It's just, no, it's like I watched this Bill Maher clip, and actually maybe I'll save that. I'll bring up the Bill Maher thing in a second here. The situation in Venezuela improved. And why do you think that is? I mean, because it's like they're looking at it like, oh my God, if you would have just done this, then maybe we would have been all right with it. It still wasn't a popular military action. In fact, before the Iran action, it was the least. And Bill Maher, can you shut up for a second? Thank you. Venezuela was historically, compared to other military actions, historically it was unpopular, but it got more popular over time. Not super popular. But, I mean, you would cut your left, off, arm. You'd cut your left arm off if you're Donald Trump to get those numbers on Iran, like bouncing back. And it's still bad, though. I mean, I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying it's improving. And then you have the situation with Iran, which took a major dive. And most of that 9-point shift, negative shift away from Trump's handling of the situation in Iran, 36.8 approved, 58 disapprove. Most of that came from a massive decline in undecided, which was 13.5. The month before that was 13.5. And by the way, the change from December to January was flat. And then from January to February, it did decline negative 2.8. But now we are here from February to March, and it's really, really bad. But there in February, almost 14% said that they just were undecided. I don't know. I don't have an opinion either way. It was 37, 49.5. Well, that 49.5 disapprove spiked to 58, nearly 6 in 10, because the undecided went from 13.5 to just 5.2. So negative 21.2 on the issue that is completely dominating the headlines. You might notice, because it's pretty important, you probably should, it is the most negative, the largest negative spread outside of the number one voting issue, which is inflation and cost of living. That's a new low for Trump on inflation and cost of living, negative 29%. I mean, this is a bloodbath. I'm sorry, guys. This is a bloodbath brewing. Inflation, cost of living shifted from January to February, another -7. This time it only ticked another -2, but it's like you're getting to the point where it's so negative. What else do you expect? From December to January, because he came in, he did that State of the Union. He looked like he was going to pivot before he attacked Venezuela. He looked like he was going to pivot. And it was just basically flat. Basically, it just didn't move. He had an opportunity to start to narrow that gap. Now he's well into Joe Biden numbers. Actually, Joe Biden, I think, had a 29% approval at one point. I'll go back and check that. As a matter of fact, maybe we won't do it Wednesday because obviously we have the interview with Joe Kent. But maybe we'll go on Friday and we'll check out Joe Biden versus Trump on inflation. I'm pretty sure Joe Biden had a couple months where he was like in the 20s. I could be wrong. So there you have that. We need to also start to look more into this group of people who identify as America First versus those who identify as MAGA. America First typically wins. So, for instance, we'll ask Republicans, just to give you the flow of how it's done during our surveys. We ask people, of course, what you identify as. If they identify as Democrats, Republicans, or independents, we ask them a series of other questions. If they identify as a Republican, first we'll ask them more specifically, do you identify with America First, MAGA Republicanism, or traditional Republicanism? This actually ticked up. The percentage of America First ticked up. And you may say, Rich, that doesn't make sense. You're saying MAGA is shrinking. Right. It's ticking up because other people are leaving. So you're getting what we've called purification through subtraction. It is still a smaller amount of Americans overall. So after that, though, if they say they're America First or MAGA, we'll ask them, which one are you? So which best describes what you identify with if you had to choose, America First or MAGA? And what are we asking people when we ask them that? I mean, what are we really essentially asking them? Are you a Trump is never wrong person, or do you really believe in America First? You'll see America First claps MAGA, claps them all the time. Sometimes when we started doing this, guys, it would be like 52.5 to 47.5. And that would be really close. And on X, I actually posted that one day, which was like, this is one of the closer days. But typically, America First beats MAGA pretty thoroughly. 55-45, 57-43, right? That's roughly what we're at here in this poll. The highest it's ever been was about 62 to 65, I think, to like 35, something like that. It's growing. I think when I look at the overall trend, like day to day overall trend, I think that by the time we get to November, I wouldn't be surprised if I saw like a solid 65 or 70 to 30, but like 65-35 consistently America First, MAGA. MAGA's brand is MAGA's dead. I'm just going to say it out loud. MAGA's dead. Last year, I said, if Donald Trump pulls the trigger on this, MAGA's doomed. It's over. The Republican majorities are cooked. I wasn't being hyperbolic. I wasn't trying to get tweets and likes. Like, that's not what my intention was. By the way, that tweet got like 30,000. That was 100% sincere. You can't say MAGA's defined by this and then do what they have done. MAGA now is viewed by people who are non-MAGA generally as like a fraud, right? And it's a very negative connotation. They have this like, oh, like BB's bitch, those people. Like, that's what they view it as. So what does this mean to me? Well, I mean, I think we kind of saw it in primary contests already. The president's endorsement doesn't carry the weight it once had. Do you want it? Of course you want it. It's still the most consequential endorsement, but it doesn't carry the weight that it once carried. Remember this, 2018, I watched the front runner in the California gubernatorial election, Travis Allen, just absolutely crater when Donald Trump tweeted, "Vote for John Cox, he'll help us keep the House." It was like 72 hours. The guy's lead was completely gone. He was at like 13%. He was crushing John Cox until then. I remember polling Strange, right? Remember that Senate race? I remember polling Rick Saccone being down by like 8 to 10 points Friday night, and Trump endorses him, and it ends up being a nail biter of a race with Conor Lamb. Those days are over. These people are already beginning to wonder, like, what do we do after this administration? Where does this go? What is there a place like, I don't want to go back to neoconservatism. What are we doing? What's the plan here? And that's who those people are. Do they still support the president? Absolutely. Absolutely, they do. They want him to succeed. They just don't follow blindly everything he says. And I don't mean to put this that way, but there's really no other way to put it. All right. It doesn't give me any pleasure to say that, but there's just no other way to put it. If we look at his approval rating, by the way, where's Republican identification detail? All right, let's do that. Political identification, Republican identification detail. Let's put it after that one where it belongs. We'll put America First former, or what I need to change. I meant to change this. Previous. We're going to change that from former America First MAGA independents to previous America First MAGA. That's just, for me, it's something that's more standard. And when you're looking at like, different things on voter files and stuff, it'll say previous registered Republican, whatever. All right. So you can see it here, right? So MAGA, they 70, almost 80% strongly approve of Donald Trump, MAGA Republicans. However, America First is bigger, and only 68% of them strongly approve of Donald Trump. So they still very much want him to succeed. There is more disapproval among America First. There's like 3% disapproval among MAGA, with some undecided, but that's not really the case with America First. Like 1 in 10 do disapprove of Donald Trump. Imagine that's almost entirely through the war, but they're giving him still the benefit of the doubt. What else is a good thing to show here with them? Because, yeah. Oh, by the way, did you see that? America First is less white, a lot less white, actually. About 5 points less white, more Hispanic, et cetera, which is a problem. They've got to get those people back, because you cannot win off of white boomers. You just can't do it. Like, it's not enough, especially since they're all going to start to pretty much, it's my nice way of saying, guys, people die. And the boomer generation has been this huge voting bloc for many, many decades. They have dominated the post-World War II era, basically. So, certainly the post-Vietnam era, when they got old enough to actually vote. They have dominated American politics since that period. And we're coming to an end with this. And I think like 10 years from now is going to stun people how Republicans vote which is the entire point of why we wrote burn it, why I wrote burn it down. That is the entire point. These are not people. Not the boomers. When the boomers are gone, you'll be left with an electorate that is nothing like what you're used to right now. They don't want to hear about norms. They don't want to hear about manners. They don't want to hear about procedure. They don't want to hear about some judge in a black robe telling you you can't do something that they voted for specifically. We have seen periods like this in history, and if you do not accommodate them, it doesn't end well. Never ends well. By the way, did they do what I asked them to do so I can tell people? They did not. Okay. So I will give you guys the link soon to the pre-order, but can't do it quite yet. All right. Speaking of which, that's one thing. I know we did go over this already, but if you look at how they feel toward Israel, for instance, it is very, very different. I don't think these people will ever forgive Israel for taking their presidency. Stealing is a better word. I think that's a better word for how they view it. I don't think, and for me, it's like I'm a little bit different. Who do I blame? I mean, I don't blame Israel. Israel's acting like Israel should be act. Israel is acting in their best interests. I am more, I'm not, as angry is maybe not even the right word, disappointed and done, like finished. With our own leaders. They are the ones who are supposed to look out for our best interest, the way that other countries, that's Trump's entire doctrine. It was anyway, before he turned into whatever the hell this is. That was his entire the basis of his foreign policy doctrine. Why I'm a realist, why he called it principled realism. And he said, if I ever see you doing something I don't like, I may bomb you off the face of the earth. I may just decide I don't want to watch that genocide, so I'm going to kill everybody. But I'm not starting a war over it. I expect you won't either, because you're doing what's in the best interest of your country, which I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself now. But these America Firsters are realists. They're not idealistic the way that especially the boomers were idealistic, which is why they're not myth believers. Boomers are myth believers. They are. When we talk about myths, when we deal with myths of empire and Jack Snyder, obviously that's foreign policy, but myths are certainly in domestic policy as well. And we're an idealistic country, and the boomers definitely were. So they believe myths. They want to believe these myths. And generations can be shaped by the events of their time. That's why the Munich myth is constantly thrown up. It's why the domino theory was so easy to impress on them. They're myth believers. If we don't stop communism in Vietnam, if we don't stop communism in Korea, if we don't stop communism here, and it's going to domino theory and we're going to end up communist. Meanwhile, they did that, ran around chasing the world's bad commies, and allowed them to take root right in their own damn country. And it was just the real problem. They're called Democrats now. Or Democratic Socialist of America, right? And by the way, I mean, let's look at this month. Speaking of old Harry Enton, what happened this month with Democrats being socialists? I mean, we talk about what the real danger is here. Democrat identification. Let's put that right after Republican detail. Let's do that. I don't know why I put race here, race detail. I don't know what I was doing with that, but let's update that. Let's look at Democratic identification. 49% Democratic Socialists, 6% Socialists. So like every month we get 55 to roughly 6 in 10 who of Democrats who say that they are in some way, shape, or form. This month, 17% said they were traditional liberals. That's it. If you look at the 28% who say unsure, no opinion, it's actually a load of horse shit. They're very sure. And when you look at what they say in their responses to other questions, it reminds me of like early tracking of MAGA and America First, where the unshores were really much more MAGA than they wanted to lead on. All right. But in any event, speaking of these myths and how this all connects, because I do want to do this before we end, I'm going to play that Bill Maher clip. I think it's important because this is something like, the madman myth. So after the fall of the domino theory, nobody holds that serious anymore, even though a version of the domino theory was resurrected to justify the war on terror. If we don't fight them over there, we'll have to fight them over here. When in reality, it was us being over there that caused them to blow us up over here. We have lost. We have learned nothing. We took a 30-year regression backward, ladies and gentlemen. It's truly unbelievable. But the madman theory now has been central to the Mark Levins and the Lindsey Graham. You always hear them point to two things, the Munich myth and the madman myth. All right. And I'm going to play this. He don't address this specifically, but Stephen A. Smith was on Bill Maher, and they were talking about the toxicity of Israel or supporting Israel in American politics now, specifically with the Democratic Party. And this was interesting, and I want to comment on it.
What do you make of more Democrats distancing themselves from AIPAC, that is the Israeli lobby? I think everyone who's running for president, although none of them say they are, but they're all the ones who are, including the two Jewish ones, have distanced. That's where Jews are with the Democratic Party these days. Has it become toxic to support Israel? I think it has for the Democrats.
All right, before Stephen Smith answers, I just want to say this. There's been this talking point when people are showing the primaries, especially the ones in Illinois, because there were some vehemently anti-Israeli or anti-Israel. That's not right. Anti-Israel candidates in the primaries, and they all lost. By the way, they didn't lose by much, and one actually made it to a thing. But the bottom line is, they all went on this talking point spree about how they all went down. They all went down. Right. And AIPAC used shell organizations, which is very important here. They use shell packs to attack these people. Disgusting ratios of being outspent. 50 to 1, 20 to 1. And they use those shells. Why? Because AIPAC and Israel are so popular? And they didn't attack them for their stance on Israel. They attacked them for other things. They did in some cases, but it wasn't like exclusive to that. So why did you go through so much trouble to avoid people hearing this message was sponsored by the American AIPAC and doesn't represent the views of the candidate, doesn't support a view of a candidate? Why did you go through so much trouble to deny the American public knowing that that was bought and paid for by AIPAC? Right. Because they're toxic and everybody knows it. And a lot of money can certainly, it's the impact of money in politics. It can blurry the picture. But they knew it, so they made sure nobody heard that. All right. So I just think that's important because it's always, and I know it I see it on social media, the first thing people will say, well, we just won all those elections. I saw Cernovich too go, oh, really? Then why the hell didn't they tell them it was from AIPAC? Exactly. You and specifically denied telling suburban white women that it was funded by AIPAC, which was apparently the strategy. They really didn't want white suburban women. Why? Because white suburban women don't like what they see in Gaza, which I'm going to get to. So just hang on a second. Let's go back to it. I'll get to it.
I think it has. The question is it right?
It's not.
I don't think it is.
No, it isn't.
I don't think it is. And I think that what you're having right now is a lot of people.
No clap, by the way. Bill Maher, real time, it's notorious for interrupting with claps.
When we saw what we saw on college campuses, what have you, and a lot of people, engaging in anti-Semitism, let's just call it what it is, that definitely becomes incredibly alarming. But I also think that there's a lot of people out there that got an issue with Benjamin Netanyahu specifically. And unfortunately, they keep castigating the entire Jewish community when they're not realizing there are an abundance of people within the Jewish community that have a problem with his leadership.
Okay, exactly. And look at her face. Oh, I caught CIA Slotkin in the perfect picture. By the way, of course, Slotkin beat Mike Rogers in the race last year for U.S. Senate in Michigan, while Donald Trump easily won the state of Michigan. And Mike Rogers even underperformed Donald Trump in Oakland County, which is a predominantly affluent fairly rich and white, typically trending Democratic county. He tightened the margin considerably and he outperformed Mike Rogers. All right. So I just thought that was like the creme de la, it was like the cherry on top for me, because there's always this dumb argument that Trumpism couldn't do better with white women or suburban affluent areas. And here you have Donald Trump doing better than deep state Mike Rogers, who everyone argues we need to go back to that in order to win back those voters, right? Republicans have to regress back to the Bush deep state Republican in order to win those voters back. And it's just simply not true. And Donald Trump proved it wasn't true in 2024. But here she is rolling her eyes because, of course, she eats AIPAC for breakfast. In a bad way, not in a good way. I don't mean that like she fights them. She is a deep state hack. Her entire job has been to do what the Israeli lobby wanted in the blob, working on behalf of or within the blob. Everything she's ever touched has turned to shit. Everything. I mean, a project she led on Iraq, all of it. She's been a failure of the highest order. But in Washington, D.C., as long as you go through the motions of the failed ideologies, then you're like given a resume. And that is somehow, somehow serve as like your professional bona fides for being able to do something like run for U.S. Senate. All right. But what he just said, I thought was interesting, and I think this is what they're missing on all of this. And he gets a little applause at the end, and that's it. How is it that argument is somehow good enough for Democrats, but it's not good enough for Republicans? So if Tucker Carlson says 1,000,000 times, I don't hate all Jews, I have a problem with Netanyahu's government and how they conduct themselves, and I have a problem with our leaders doing what is in their best interests instead of doing what is in the best interest of their voters and what their voters voted for in the first place. It's Netanyahu who's driving it, and I'm not talking about all Jews. That doesn't matter. He's anti-Semitic, period. Somehow that argument doesn't apply to Democrats. So what he's saying is true. Netanyahu, I believe, because of my polling, because of my research, I do believe Netanyahu and his government that he's a significant driver of what we could call an increase in negative sentiment toward Israel. I think that's fair and that's correct. But it's also true that Democrats have embraced truly anti-Semitic groups that are responsible for the modern rise in anti-Semitism on college campuses and elsewhere for more than a decade, right? During the Obama years, we saw this all over the place on full display. They've played both sides. They have. But neither side wants to admit this, because I think Republicans weren't playing both sides. I don't. I think the argument he just made is an argument that pertains more to the right than it does to the left. There is true anti-Semitism on the left. I've witnessed it. I've seen it myself. I've polled it. I mean, there are just some people that are part of the Democratic coalition that don't like Jews. And maybe at one point it was an objection to foreign policy. It was an objection to their behavior. But along the line, and others on the right have talked about this, like you have to like fight the urge to hate other people for what their governments do. You have never heard that on the left, ever. And also on the left, they're not really Christians. So there's no foundation. There's no principled foundation. I mean, of course, there are Christians on the left, but there isn't a deeply rooted majority even foundational belief that it is wrong to hate individuals based on their color, their faith, their creed, whatever. There is on the right. And I think that as time goes on, and as like, because the Israeli first crowd was not having an honest, in good faith debate. So as I said, I mean, this is established social science. What I said did not warrant what Mark Levin said back to me. He's a Jewish supremacist. That's why he said that, period. It's confession through projection, but it's established social science. How they acted and what they did causes more anti-Semitism. Like you're actually making people hate you for what you're doing. And it didn't start there. And this is what neither party wants to grapple with. They don't want to admit it, and they don't want to acknowledge it even. But this is why what they're doing is not going to work. And until they decide to have an honest discussion, it's never going to progress, and it's going to divulge into probably very dark things. Americans believe Israel committed a genocide in Gaza. So you're asking them to full-throated support behind a nation that has behaved in a way that they don't approve of. All right. So it was just on the left where we used to hear that, years ago. But this new, over the last couple of years or so, there's been the rise of new MAGA that helps support Donald Trump in 24, younger, less white, not even the evangelicals. Barnes and I have done this a lot. We've showed you the polling data on this. Even young MAGA believes that that Israel committed a genocide in Gaza. And they don't want to acknowledge that fact. And when I spoke to certain members, maybe that's why he blocked me, on behalf of one of my friends' requests, I spoke to different national security officials about what to do about this. And instead of taking what I was saying seriously, they concluded, we'll let Larry Ellison buy TikTok, and we'll have Barry Weiss run propaganda at CBS, and we'll have Elon crack down on criticism of Israel on X, and we'll have Instagram ban accounts and Facebook ban accounts that are critical of Israeli foreign policy. So they're the ones who just did what Stephen Smith just accused others of doing. They are the ones who married critics of foreign policy and critics of morale, people objecting based on moral principles. They married that with true blue Jew haters. They're the ones who made that marriage by acting the way that they acted. And in fact, you can see it. They accuse everybody of anti-Semitism. You can't do that. You can't browbeat. It only works when you're the majority. Browbeating doesn't work. 25% cannot browbeat 75%. Can't be done. You just look like you're haters, dangerous haters. And when you lose your power, what's going to happen to you is going to be even worse. And I'm priming this before I say what I'm going to say at the end of this about foreign policy. But Americans also believe that, and this is a crazy American idea, that you are, as a citizen of a country, you are, of course, responsible for the behavior of your country. And if you are a citizen of a country like the United States, you have a right to object to your government supporting policies or supporting another nation that engages in policies that you do not support, like, say, genocide. And everyone in response, because they can't answer that, because there is no good answer, because they committed a genocide, they just scream anti-Semitism without acknowledging that the Overton window has shifted so much on this issue, which is Israel and its behavior, that it will never work. Just because you don't acknowledge it doesn't mean it didn't happen and it's not real. So allowing Larry Ellison to purchase TikTok, having Barry run interference like she's Fox News now, isn't going to change their minds. The days of Fox telling you, oh, you know what, this is just propaganda from Hamas, they're over. And we're not going back. It is too late for that. And it's only going to get worse as, what I explained before, these boomers start to begin to leave the electorate. Their weight on the conversation declines. It's only going to get worse, and eventually it's going to get really, really ugly. And this was always, Barnes and I, for 10 years, publicly, always defended Israel's right to exist, always defended their right to defend themselves, always almost instinctively took their side in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and all these ongoing issues. And here's what we argued, and I know Mark tried to argue the same thing. If you truly do care about the future of the state of Israel, then you will condemn the Israeli lobby, you will condemn their tactics, you will condemn their government's tactics, because it will lead to their demise. They will already be political pariahs sooner than any of us thought. Thank you, Gallup, by the way, for confirming that trend. Because when we put it out, so many people just simply didn't believe it. You had 8 to 10 years before the age, or 6 to 8, really, before the age signal got so bad and so overwhelming. And there were so many boomers who were gone out of the electorate that just by, the nature of the trend, more people would sympathize with Palestine than they would with Israel. But because of how they acted, without a doubt, a lot of this has to do with the sentiment among MAGA, certain elements of MAGA, America First, and certainly those who are now what we're calling previous America First and MAGA. They blame Israel for corrupting and diverting the America First agenda. And they'll never forgive them for it. It's done. So what does that mean for Israel if they want to continue their foreign policy as it is today? They will not have the support of the American government. It doesn't matter how much AIPAC spends. Eventually, we will get to a point where you cannot win a primary in either party if you're Israel's bitch. And what does it mean for their foreign policy? You can only answer that if you know what their foreign policy is. And here's like, oh my God, we blew it up on X. People were so pissed about this analogy. Well, I thought I said it before. I don't know why they were so mad, but I'm going to say it again right now. Israel is behaving in a very predictable way to any international relations theorist or anyone who even attended Rich's book club on locals. Read The Tragedy of Great Power Politics by the very renowned anti-Semite John Mearsheimer. I'm being sarcastic. I'm a realist through and through. But even if you're not totally subscribing to realism, you can't deny the empirical record, which is what matters most to realists. There's a very predictable pattern of behavior for encircled, aspiring great powers, especially those who aspire to be regional hegemons, which is what Israel is. A hegemon is simply the great power that dominates their sphere of influence, their region. So we are the Western Hemisphere hegemon. China aspires to be the Eastern one, so does Russia. They share an Asian sphere of influence. That's why a stupid foreign policy for the US would be to fight both, maybe get Russophobia and Chineseophobia, whatever the hell it's called. Let's just take on the world ourselves. Hopefully India won't jump in that mix. It's just stupid. We should absolutely be friends with the predominantly Christian country. I don't care if they share our values or not. That's not the point. Joseph Stalin didn't share our values in World War II. We still allied with him to go after Nazi Germany. To go after? No. We joined in a balancing coalition against the Axis powers, started by Nazi Germany, who had a also very predictive, because of course they were what? Just like Israel, an aspiring hegemon that is encircled, meaning surrounded by enemies. Yes, I'm linking Israel's behavior with Nazi Germany. Absolutely. And Wilhelm Germany, who did the same thing. Hitler wasn't a madman who had any different strategy than the Germany of World War I. It's the same thing. Encircled powers, especially ones that are aspiring for hegemony, push out because they don't want, they're just pursuing security. They figure the best way to remain secure is to push out our territorial borders as far as from the center of our power as can be. So we give ourselves padding. Think of it like that. That's why Alsace-Lorraine was such a contested, tiny, worthless sliver of land. They just wanted it. France and Germany wanted they wanted the padding. That's why Israel has been pushing out for years. And I'm not saying they don't have a reason to do it. It's completely rational. But rational doesn't always mean wise. And here's where I'm going to end it. Eventually, the UK or Britain at the time, they had Big Brother US they could use as their ace up their sleeve, right? But Israel has been benefiting off of having us as their stupid superpower big brother who's willing to be baited and bled, which is a strategy. It means you're like getting or bandwagoning is another, free riding. That's another strategy. Actually, they're doing all three, especially free riding. But it's like using the power of another great power to achieve your ends. And that is what Israel is successfully doing to us. Unfortunately, it also qualifies as baiting and bleeding because they're baiting us into wars and bleeding us that are not in our interest and are not at all going to leave us, because what is the goal? Increase your relative power. It already has decreased our relative power considerably. I never thought Donald Trump would make these mistakes, but he did. And he has left us in a significantly weakened position. A security agreement in the Gulf is forever altered. The dogmas have fallen. We cannot defend these people the way that the security agreement depended upon for them to buy into it. It's ruined. And we can't even begin to deal with crazy Kim Jong-un over in Asia because we have the same security agreement with Japan and with Seoul. Can't even begin because we've already taken munition stockpiles from that theater, which we'll talk a lot about with Joe Ken on Wednesday. And we've moved them to the Middle East because not so much us, but Israel ran out of interceptors. Israel ran out of this. Israel ran out of that. And we take them from Ukraine too, weakening our position in Europe. He has forever weakened us with this stupid war. He has. Sad. I wanted to leave the Middle East on our own terms in a better way, on our own terms. And that's not going to happen. Now we're going to look like we're leaving the way we left Vietnam, like a bunch of bitches with a broken nose, where the Jews had walked around campus that looked super tough until somebody got the courage to punch us in the nose and our nose started bleeding and we ran home to our mommy like a little pussy. That's the way we always leave these areas, and we're doing it again here. And when we do, here's where it matters. Eventually, those pushing out, those encircled hegemons that push out, are so aggressive, they make strange bedfellows. Politics isn't the only thing. Survival makes strange bedfellows. And eventually, Turkey and other nations are going to say, someone's got to stop them. And they will, inevitable, come together in a balancing coalition, and they will stop them. What happens to these encircled powers? Think through history. It doesn't matter if it's a unipolar system, a multipolar system, a bipolar system, and unipolar is like something we thought we were going to get after the fall of the Soviet Union. But of course, our genius DC foreign policy thinkers wrecked it. Squandered the peace dividend, squandered our opportunity to be the most powerful nation on planet Earth ever for the foreseeable future. They squandered all of our blood, our treasure. They wrecked it all. But what happens to those encircled powers? They get destroyed. World War II, World War I, they get destroyed. Eventually, their neighbors decide somebody has to stop this aggression. And they band together and destroy them. And you may think, oh, but Rich, they tried that with Israel already. They did. And Israel was doing what? Pushing out. Did they win? Yeah, they won this time. Germany had a lot of early successes too. But they're kind of spent. Looks like Israel wasn't as strong as they thought there. Where are they expanding into now? Lebanon. They're not going to help us with Iran. They'll give us they will contribute to any ground war with Iran about as much as they did with Iraq. Zero. And at some point, it will be politically impossible because Democrats aren't as stupid as Republicans. What happened when the Iraq war went south and Democrats took over? They started rejecting bills. They wouldn't even fund the military after many of them, including Hillary Clinton, voted for the authorization of use of force in Iraq. It didn't bother them one iota. A few years later, or even less, to say, you know what? No, I'm voting no on a bill to make sure that our boys have the equipment they need in Iraq. You're going to do the surge? going to have to find the money somewhere else. They had no problem doing that. They did not support. They pulled their support from the war, and they let Republicans take all of the political fall. Bush spent all his political capital. Republicans got wiped out in 06, and then, of course, wiped out even further in 2008. Democrats are masters at this, letting Republicans take the fall for wars that even they supported. So by the time we get there, what's Israel going to do? They're going to beg President Gavin Newsom? He won't be president. It'll be somebody else. They won't be able to. They won't have the political capital. Doesn't matter how much AIPAC gives them. They will care about whether or not they can win elections, unlike Republicans who are stupid and can't think past the next month. So there you have it. So at the end of the day, it doesn't end very well for Israel. It just doesn't. I don't see how that can be. You needed to keep your, instead of like, and we'll see. We'll see. Maybe they can achieve so much of their goals, and they can achieve their security goals before that time comes. But I think you're about to find out how unlikely that is and how prepared the Persians were for this. All right. So we'll see. Lebanon, another story. But I don't see Russia letting Iran fall here, guys. I just don't. They didn't have a plan. And by the way, even any ground plan, which I'm going to talk more about this with Joe. I'm not going to continue this now, but any ground plan that they think they have has a problem with objectives. What's your objectives? I'm going to take these 3 islands. I'm going to keep going to it. But ultimately, there's no objective. You're not going to be able to stay there without a serious permanent change in leadership in Iran. You're not going to be able to achieve that with this plan. It's just running back and forth like a bunch of stupid idiots. It's the dog chasing it, the dog that caught the bus. That's what it is, and it's sad. It really is. There are a couple of questions. I'm going to try to run through them. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not sure which one you were talking about right now, but I appreciate that. There was a lot of truth bombs dropped today, Grant. I didn't mean to give everybody on Monday shit day, but the fact of the matter is a lot of this had to be said, man. A lot of this had to be said, including the pardon stuff and all of that had to be said. You need to ask independents if they are MAGA or America First, as I no longer call myself a Republican, but I'm America First independent. We do. That's exactly what this is. So just to show you guys, we do. This is what one idiot who I will not name on my show because I don't punch down and give anybody notoriety when they don't deserve it. The one idiot who tried to refute what I was saying and literally said I was lying about what I was saying. My own data proves I'm lying. Idiot didn't know we do that because we don't always show people that. But that's what we've showed you this month. Previous AF MAGA independents. That's them. All right. That's a question from locals, by the way. He was asked by Kika Blue. And thank you guys for the super chats and for the tips. Will the new book be available on audiobook for us knuckle draggers? I don't think it'll be available for audiobook right away. It's going to be because and there's a reason for it. Obviously, at some point we will, but was very quick, very, very quick. So I'll get it at some point. We'll get it on audiobook, but this was something believe me, this was we had a lot of stuff written already. You guys know that there was some stuff that I already wanted to write. Did they change this yet? So I can give you guys this. They did not. They have to change that or else I can't put it. I can't give it to you yet. There's just something that I don't like. I want changed. And until I can't, yeah, so there it is. Just look for right now in this crosstab, it says former, but go and look for previous in the next one. Okay. And that will tell you, I may even change this one. So if you see previous AF MAGA, that's that. Those are independents. All right. Pardon's going to be the final impeachment nail. Yep. And I tried, I really did. Kiss the wall, kiss my ass. America First only. That's a good one. Yeah, I think pardons are going to be a real problem. I know Cernovich and I have both been railing about that on X for and Barnes too, the better part of like a year now. This the pardon scam is bad. It's bad. And it's the wait, I mean, the problem is like the grifters, that all of these things that are going to damage the president, that people did not protect the president against, right? The unregistered lobbyists, like Mike Davis, right? Over at the antitrust, which the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg and everyone now is reporting, and the judge is releasing transcripts, and it's just so damning. This is going to look so politically bad. Why? What did Mike Davis do that made him worth the coalition, right? Part of the coalition. What did, and you have all these other people. You can go look at the New York Times article, the ProPublica article today, ProPublica, whatever, about the pardons. Look at who's involved in that. Like, these aren't even like critical MAGA people who helped win the election. All the people who helped win the election are currently under attack right now by the president and his people at the White House. It's unbelievable. It's totally backward, right? And I can tell you this, guys. I can tell you this. Someone like Tucker he played a huge role in getting low proposition voters in the Midwest to vote. I mean, being a part of 10X, being the source data of 10X, I can tell you that. I know it for a fact. I know when he did that shout out that we got more registrations to that system and more signups than we had gotten. Forget Intel. It was like, I'd have to go back and look. I wouldn't be surprised if it was like 100 times total at that point. It was a huge blow up of the system. It also gave, shined huge light on it, and the media came after it, which is exactly what we wanted them to do. It was massive. Yeah, they fell right into it. Full on mocking and everything. I did see this. Hightower, I did see it. I'm willing to try to give Trump the benefit of the doubt here and say, like, maybe they thought he was talking about impeachment of other people. I don't know. Who maybe will be in the next administration. I don't know. I mean, I'm really reaching for it. I understand. I'm reaching for it. Yeah, it's not good. When the crowd instinctively just starts to clap, it's not good. I'll tell you this. Here's another grift. Here you have Matt Schlapp making almost $1 million salary between the 100+ K he gave his wife and the 900K he gave him. 800 and something K he gave himself. I don't remember Al used to run the ACU getting money like that. That's insane. Of course, I'm being facetious there as well. That's crazy. Al never took that much money. It was supposed to be an honor to serve as the chairman of CPAC. Once upon a time, it was getting 10K, and now it got less than 3,000 attendees this year. And I think the cheapest I heard a ticket went for was like 12 or 15 bucks. I mean, he ran the organization into the ground, and he's getting $1 million a year for it. It's bullshit. All the while. And it's like, they try to drag up something like they love to smear people, what's his name had a divorce 4 years ago. Disgusting. They would even bring that up, and, me and with, my issues and shit. Dude, I'm not currently paying out, 6-7 figure settlements because I can't keep my hand off little boys or younger boys, whatever. I can't, when I get drunk in a bar and touch someone's penis who works for me. There's fucking people. Fucking dare you try to smear anybody else. Married man. I don't care if it's true or not. You shouldn't have been in. If you put yourself in that position, which is, of course, drinking in public and drinking in, you have to know in this business that you cannot put yourself in that position. I have stories to try to tell you guys. Not try to tell you. I can tell you one day about how people tried to get me in compromising positions. That's the nature of this business. You cannot do that. And if you do, you're displaying a judgment, makes you dangerous. Bad judgment. GOP behavior is easily understood as an addiction to corruption. It's all excuse making, wishful thinking to justify an addiction they won't quit. I see exactly what you're talking about there, because go look at some of these, like that one idiot I actually, quote tweeted on X last week. Like, which is the more likely scenario? Yes, me and Qantas suddenly don't know a response bias when we see it. And the two most, among the most, there's only a few of us who did a really good job in 24, and Qantas is one of them. Somehow we're just wrong. We're all wrong because Qantas and I had almost identical results for this month. I don't know if you guys saw it, but which is more likely? We're wrong, or you have a cognitive bias. And it's like you go and you look at some of these people and their behavior, and it's almost like it's more like an illusory truth effect or an addiction even than it is explained best by a cognitive bias, right? Which it could be, framing biases or something like that, right? Because all these people, they're so stupid. They're like, it's a response bias. Which one? You do know there are more than one response biases. There are more than one response bias. Which response bias are you accusing us of? Like, it's too stupid. And it's like, so you look at the various cognitive biases, and it's not enough to explain everything. Can it explain a lot of people? Sure. But I actually agree with you here, Brian. I think there's an addiction. People want to win. A big appeal to Donald Trump is that we were losers and we just lose at everything. We lost at Vietnam. We couldn't close the deal in the Gulf War, no matter how much they sell that. The second Gulf War, we lost. We lost in Afghanistan. We lost trade deal negotiations in NAFTA. We lost with the WTO. We're a bunch of fucking losers. You know, we can't win at anything. And our country's just degrading into a former great empire. And Trump comes along and he makes people feel good, like cheerleads for the economy. He did in the first administration, not this one. Cheerleads for the economy, doesn't fake a golden age, is trying to win. And some of the, especially the boomers, and I don't mean to attack boomers, just it's true, guys. You're a myth-believing class of people. Let's be honest. And it is your generation. If you're a product of it, it's just the way it is. Like, they're addicted to and it's fake winning, Brian. They're not really winning. They're losing badly. And they're just addicted to the feeling of winning. Larry Schweikert, he's a great example. Once used to call him a friend too, but every time I give him a dose of reality, he blocks me, talks shit about me, right? And then he comes crawling back when I'm right. He's been doing this since 2018. Like, Rich, why are you turning into TDS? Where'd you get this TDS? What the hell happened to you? Larry, you're going to lose the House. What are you talking about? I'm a pollster. I'm not a fucking propagandist. I'm a public opinion pollster. My job is not to sit here and fudge numbers for you and Donald Trump. My job is to tell the truth. And then you name it. We're winning until they realize we lost. Then he comes crying back. Got a couple of minutes to talk. It's the same shit over and over again. Winning. No, you're not. You're losing badly. The country's losing. Your grandkids are losing. Your kids are losing. Anyway, I agree. I see it the same way. Commander Praji, the big reason I voted for Trump in all three elections was no more foreign wars. My brother is on the USS Tripoli fleet, headed to the Strait of Hormuz and may not come back. I feel angry and betrayed. Listen, I am so sorry to hear that. I think we'll all give him our prayers, of course. And I'm sorry to hear that. I really am. And I can tell you that I understand, your rationale for voting. I believe people make rational policy choices. I think Republicans tried to argue against that thesis because they couldn't make a rational argument to make people conclude it was rationally in their interest to vote for them until Trump came along. And very clear to me why Bernie Sanders supporters in Michigan and in Pennsylvania and in Wisconsin and in Ohio and in Iowa and in Indiana, right? Very clear to me why Bernie primary voters would make a rational choice to vote for Donald Trump. War and immigration. And war didn't get the coverage that it should have gotten, even though he sat there and railed against Bush and railed about the rest of them. It just didn't get that coverage. But unfortunately, I get where you're coming from, and you're not alone. There's a lot and he'll never get away from this. I'm getting calls right now. So I said something that pissed somebody off. Now they're sending the friends to call me. That always happens. First it's them, and then it's like a friend, who's friendly with them. And it's like, I got to tell you, a lot of people think you went over today. Here's what I got to say to that. This. When are you going to learn? I don't care. I'm going to tell the truth. When are you going to learn? I don't care. Yeah. Hold on one second. This one, I love this dude though. Yeah, I mean, look, actually, David said something that's important. He voted one guy. Okay. David said something that's important, but like, who voted for all these who endorsed these senators? Who did that? So like, when he came in, a lot of this is on him, that he's going to end up in these positions because he endorsed these people. He supported these people. Like, remember when he backed John Thune, and it was like, this is a disaster. People like Sean Davis understood. He's like, this is a disaster. Like, the OGs knew this is not right. You have to do Rick Scott or we're going down. Like, at that point, that early, many of us were like, here we go again. That early, before anything even happened, because we knew what it meant for him to back Thune. And, you have to think further ahead. You have to think further ahead. And he didn't, unfortunately. He just didn't. One of my other buddies was like, listen, can you introduce me to some, I kid you not, this is a text. Can you introduce me to some of your Democratic friends so I'm last in line to be executed? That's a real comment and a real request from somebody. And if you knew who that was, that would be hilarious. But I don't think I should say publicly who it is. Rich, I'm worried about Williamson County in Texas. Me too. We just had the GOP county Senate district conventions, and the turnout was much lower than I expected. Any comments? I just agree. The comments I have is that I agree. Williamson County, I saw it in the DDHQ votes. It's in line with what I'd expect. Listen, Texas is Texas is in trouble. I am not kidding. And it's like in trouble for two reasons. It's like, yes, Paxton is polling stronger, but at the end of the day, he needs better turnout. Otherwise, Cornyn's going to get the boomers to beat him. And it's just, even if you're someone as MAGA as Paxton, it may be hard to get some of these people out. Like, it's, and not maybe, it is. I am very, very, I saw the same thing. That's from Ideas Not Money on Locals. I saw the same thing, and I'm deeply concerned. I mean, deeply concerned. That's all I can say about it. And you're not getting any of the other votes out in the new MAGA counties, like parts of Hidalgo and Bear, and, where Donald Trump did better in these like deeply Hispanic areas. Even Zapata's got a few votes there, but look at Starr, and every vote counts. It would be one thing if you had like some white Republicans turning on you the way they did in 2018 against Donald Trump and Republicans. It would be okay if you still maintained those younger and non-white voters from the 24 coalition, but they didn't. So it's like, what are you going to do when you lose them? Williamson, Tarrant, and the non-white counties. You're screwed. You're screwed. There's no other votes. You're done. Dread Robert, Rich, the filibuster is a fake issue. It only stops things a majority does not really want. Yeah, I totally agree. And you know what it does too, Robert? It's like they don't ever want to get rid of it because Republicans use it for rents to sell to rent seekers. What do I mean by that? Special interest, guys. It's the same thing as blue slips. It's just like another value of their Senate seat that they can cite when they want to get more money out of K Street and donors. It's bullshit. I watch my language. I think Laura's hit her curse quota for the day. Remember the filibuster against the Civil Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act are now law. There's no filibuster on the budget anymore, but Doge cuts were not passed. Republicans are just looking for excuses why they can't do what the voters want. This is all an echo of claiming that Susie was the problem, not Trump. JD and the rest refuse to call the people responsible for these failures out. I don't like when people blame Susie over and over and over again. Like, Trump is the most powerful man in the world, allegedly. Like, get over it, bro. Like, get over it. Like, Susie is the White House chief of staff. If Donald Trump doesn't have enough political instincts to, like, then that's on him. I mean, I'm with him on that. Only thing I would say is, like, if you're JD, look, at some point you have to have a conversation with your trusted advisors who aren't going to cost you political capital because they're in on shit too. you have to have a conversation about your exit strategy here really soon, JD. You know, I don't know what to tell you. If you do it after you get mauled in the midterms, it's going to look like you're an opportunist. So at some point, you have to throw some shots across the bow before the midterms. So you build up your bona fides. Like, look, I didn't want the Iran war. Look, I didn't want this to happen in antitrust. Look, I didn't want this to happen at the Justice Department. Look, I wanted accountability. I wanted this. I, argued here. I was on the right side of all of these issues. You're going to have to fire some shots across the bow soon, because if you wait until Republicans are, in the minority of a 250 seat Democratic majority, and you're at like 51, 52 Senate seats down, like, you're just going to look like a political opportunist, and that's it, So they better be having a conversation, Robert, like now. You know what I mean? It'll be too late later. Do you have anything on the Wisconsin Supreme Court? Governor, yes, Republicans are losing. I am concerned the Trump headwind will bleed down to state races and risk turning Wisconsin into Illinois. Me too. And I actually think that's probably likely. Wisconsin, Iowa, these are states that have very long histories of swinging back. When people think, oh, they're solid. They're solid. No, they're not at all. Wisconsin's probably going to be a bloodbath. Sorry. And I think at this point, Republicans are probably going to lose the Iowa Senate seat too. They're down in their own polling. It's not just me. They're down in their own polling. Look at what happened in 2018 to Iowa, which has we don't have to go down the path, but Wisconsin and Iowa have very key demographics, overlapping demographics. The only thing is, obviously, that Iowa is more rural than Wisconsin. It has a less urban vote share. And there are more left-leaning Scandinavian ethnicities than Iowa, which has more Norwegian Catholics, which are right-leaning. So, but there are overlaps, a lot of very, very important overlaps, and they're extremely white, right? But they swing, and they swing hard, and they hate war. So I have very bad news for you, James. Like, this is almost a certainty. We're looking at North Carolina right now, and the state generic ballot is so bad. North Carolina is about to be absolutely eviscerated. And we're going to lose every single statewide race. And court's going to go. We'll have now one Democratic senator, a Democratic governor, and I don't even want to say it out loud, but we had super majorities in the state legislature about to be wiped out into nothing. Democrats could actually take control. It's that bad. So Wisconsin is going, and here's the real, kick to the balls here. When the Supreme Court rules on the Voting Rights Act, and when it's time to do the census again and reapportionment again, if Democrats make the gains they're set to make right now in state legislatures, they're going to be in charge. So Republicans keep saying, well, wait until the census. For what? For you to fucking blow it? You're not going to be in charge of it at this rate, you idiots. You stupid Israel first idiots. You blew it for a decade. You better hope something happens. Some event completely out of your hands is needed at this point. Listen to this. There is literally zero money flowing in the Minnesota Republican Party right now. First of all, I was very much looking forward to coming out there, and I still am. But this is crazy to me. And the vice president should be at that event, doing that event. You need a new frontier at this point. Even when you're playing defense, you should be looking for points of offense. There's fraud, the whole fraud narrative out there they lost control of. This is mind-blowing. And there's an open governor and U.S. Senate race. And by the way, we're going to have Roy on. We just scheduling things going on right now. That's crazy to me. And meanwhile, Ryan, $100 million to stop Ken Paxton in round one alone, to save an incumbent who dates back to 2002. Disgraceful, man. Absolutely disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful. But don't worry, because Trump's endorsement team is making tens of millions. Why has Dr. Steve become a clapping seal for Trump? I don't know. He's a smart guy. I don't know. He's a positive guy too, so maybe he's just trying to think positive. I don't know. I don't know, Jared. I wish I knew the answer to that better. Rich, do you really think Trump made mistakes or continues to be intentional? The fuel shortages and oil interruptions not predicted or foreseeable? I'm telling you, Rocket Boy, they went in there thinking they could do this super quick. They did. He thought he could not, that he convinced himself. He convinced himself. Obviously, something bad's going on because one of my friends who's important, you know him, he wants to vent. Something's happening behind the scenes. Did the ground war start while I was doing this or something? Or like, what's going on here? So sad. I think some things are intentional now, though. I mean, Rocket Boy, don't you sense a little bit of like bitterness from Trump toward the voter? Like, I don't want your support anymore. There aren't talented people in America. Like, I don't know. Like, I sense some kind of resentment, which is astonishing because, bro, they saved you from spending the rest of your life in prison. And this is the thanks they get? I mean, it's so while I'm like interviewing a single mother in Pennsylvania who's Hispanic and voted for Donald Trump, and she's like literally crying, you know, and she says things like this, like, you know, Puppy, that motherfucker could have been in jail forever. Like, I'm like, and I'm like, listen, I think that shit's sexy. So like, I'm not making fun of it at all. Look, I'm like, I get it, mama. I get it, mama. It's frustrating. Damn! Speaking of sexy Hispanic women, here comes my wife. Come here, hold on 1 second.
No, I'm not going in. Oh, I'm waiting.
No, I will not bring you on camera. She's in a bathing suit. You are not coming on camera. No, ma'am. I will take the Robert Barnes rule and keep you hidden. The Robert Barnes and Vice President's rule. Why on earth are you letting anybody see that woman?
Shut up.
Yeah, I just think that like and then maybe look, I do think the market manipulations are intentional, Rocket Boy. I do. I think that they're making money hand over fist. I think something triggered Trump's brain, man, when he saw the chains on Trump Tower. If you're not a New Yorker, maybe, or even in the tri-state area, maybe you can't appreciate how important Trump Tower is to him and how important Trump Tower was to Manhattan. This is what always pissed me off about the left. Donald Trump literally recreated the skyline in New York City. At the very least, he refurbished that shit, right? That skating rink was a dump. And Trump Tower was this like glamorous, beautiful creation. You had to see what it looked like before he put Trump Tower there. Oh my God. And he turned that entire, whatever you want to call it. It's not Laura, what is it? It's like a square, I guess is a better, like where Trump Tower is, we call it like a square. Like it's not a corner, like it's on the street corner. It's like a square or like an intersection. Yeah, I guess what he turned that entire intersection into a beautiful place to go, a safe place to go again. You couldn't go there, man, without like worrying some poor person was going to stab you with a dirty needle because he's in some kind of like crazy delusion where he's fighting like the Sith or something like John, stab. I'm serious. It was bad. But alas, here we are now. And I can't help but to think, like, he saw that thing chained up. He didn't post bail immediately. I mean, that's a lot for a guy like that, and he probably, I think it wigged him out. I think he realized the vulnerability he's in, which is all the more reason why I have such, like, I detest his advisors. Like, you put him in a worse position. He's in a worse position now than he's ever been. I mean, you may think you have some kind of a deal, which I've heard, don't get me wrong, and maybe some of you guys have as well. I heard these deal talks. I just don't believe it. You can't make a deal with those people. Last time his son-in-law told him, don't go down this route. Don't listen to before Ratcliffe turned into BB's bitch too. He was right. Tell the country about China and what they did here with this election. Everyone's like, Venezuela. It's not Venezuela, dude. It was China. All right. But if they ever get their act together and they have a chance to tell you what really happened in 22. I can cut it really short right now. They had like over a dozen centers all over the country, and the Chinese were helping and funding it and pushing it, and they particularly exploited unsolicited mail-in balloting, which is why you got addresses that were all in the same UPS store. Like, anyway, I'll leave it there. But Ratcliffe was like, you got to tell the whole country. Like, you literally have a compromised president getting sworn into office. You have to tell the country what happened. And he got advice. Oh, they don't, once you cross that line, they'll come at you forever. They were coming at you anyway, dummy. Not him, but he believed that, dummy. And because he did, look where he ended up. Trump Tower chained. DC doesn't care which party wins. That's absolutely true, Wolfie. Like, this is another thing people forgot. Worry about L versus R is what the Epstein class needs us to do. The elite win either way. He's totally right. He's totally right. That's absolutely true. It's absolutely, positively true. And that's what Trumpism was all about. They're all pieces of shit. They're all liars. And the whole entire party really needed to be purged. But at least there was a vehicle, which was the Republican Party, a vehicle through which you could try to correct things, right the ship, reform, dismantle, etc. Stop the managed decline of the empire. And instead, Trump sided with the Sith. I mean, there's no other way to put it. Soon as the Bacthune, it was like, that's the end of that. Was I wrong? Here we are. Was I wrong? I mean, people can talk all the shit they want about me. Was I wrong? How did you do in 2025? How have you been doing this year? And what has Trump been up to? Putting America first? Stupid sycophants. Sycophants are so dangerous when somebody like Donald Trump is the leader. So dangerous. Hold on. I had to take a screenshot of this. A donation to the Mark Mitchell Freedom Fund. Does he know he has not been forgotten? And the tarnish on Rasmussen for muzzling him. I don't want to give him any more trouble, so I'll just leave it where it is and tell you that will be appreciated greatly. That's so funny. Seeing Tellurico signs in red areas in West Texas. Yeah, I'm telling you, man, he could win. Really can win. He's saying, we polled that during the 1776 project. Let me go real quick. And I know I'm taking a long time here and the show's running way over. Where is it? Trump tariffs. I think this is that crosstab, so I'd be able to do it. Yeah, it is. Boom. All right. So let me take down these crosstabs. Let me put up these crosstabs. We were trying to see how powerful the Democratic message would be over the Epstein situation. Which party trusted more to stay out of wars? Why is this like this? Where the hell is it? Hold on. I know that I hit save on this crosstab like 1,000,000 times. I know. Okay, there's something going on. I do have to end this really soon. Let's go to this. Yeah, that's the wrong crosstab. Okay. Let me just go bring this up, and then I do have to go. I can see something's happening here, and there are multiple people trying to get a hold of me that's telling me I think I know what it is, and it's not going to be good. Okay, let me get rid of this. Let me pop this up. Boom, boom, boom. Crosstabs. Let's go to the crosstab thing. Did I make one here? What's this? Uncategorized. Sex, race, democratic identification. Name recognition for Massey. Is this the overall one? Copy of. Okay, let me hit this one real quick. Maybe I made a copy and I didn't save the original crosstab with it. Sometimes if something's changed, like a variable name is changed or something, it'll end up being, yeah, damn it, that is what happened. Okay, it'll end up that it makes a new crosstab. That's what happened. All right. We need to expose and hold accountable the Epstein class, increase access to healthcare, no cuts for billionaires, etc. Anyway, we went through the whole Democratic messaging thing. Who do you agree? Strongly, somewhat, whatever. Over a quarter agreed. 53% on top of that strongly agreed. Look at it. It's universal, guys. Universal. It's basically 60, 80% who had a favorable agreeing, view of the Democratic message. With Republicans, 57%. All right. Then we even said the Epstein attack, the Democrat Epstein attack on Trump, which is basically polling what they say about Trump with the Epstein class, 42%. Let's go by party real quick so you can even see that, which is just crazy. 42% strongly agreed with the attack against Trump over the Epstein class. 19% somewhat agreed. So you're looking at, basically a little over a majority who did agree and only 39.4% disagreeing. Look at Republicans. 42% of Republicans agreed with this attack. 42%, 58% of independents, raw independents, and 46% of third-party voters. But that was only opposed to 26% of third-party voters who didn't agree with it. Only 46% of Republicans disagreed with it. Just so you understand how we worded this, Trump promised to expose the Epstein class. Instead, he covered up for them. Trump was supposed to fight for the working class. Instead, he's closing rural clinics and hospitals to cut taxes for George Soros and Elon Musk. Trump promised to end the wars. Instead, he started more wars for oil and for foreign nations. You're cooked. You're cooked. Cooked. Good job, neocons and Israel first. And good job, Donald Trump, for letting them do it. Like, this is at the end of the day, you just can't keep blaming all of these other people. He is the decision maker. It goes to what Dred Roberts said. Like, he is the decision maker. Andrew, speaking of, 29-year-old former 3-time Trump voter, became party infrastructure man working on fixing voter rolls. And I actually spoke to voters in the hood. I will never do it again. Yep. I mean, they're done, man. I mean, that's it. Like, this is such bad damage that it really, it takes like a devastating defeat to fix the party. Like, that's what we always have seen in situations like this. So I don't at all. I think Tallarico will do very well in rural Texas. If it's John Cornyn, I think Tallarico wins. End of story. Because there's just so many Paxton voters who won't vote for him. If it's Paxton, it'll be close, 1 to 2 points, but at least he has a chance. And I don't mean Paxton +2. I mean Paxton loses by 1 or 2, or he wins by 1 or 2. But Cornyn's going to lose to Tallarico. He's going to lose. Likelihood of a Dem supermajority in 2028. I mean, supermajorities are so hard to get with a map like this. It's just, they're so hard. But the Senate map will get more favorable after this year to Democrats, and that's the problem. So I don't know, supermajority. God, I hope not. But like, Democrats govern like they have a supermajority anyway. So does it really matter? You know what I mean? All right, I got to go because this is looking really, really bad. I'll find out what's going on. Hopefully it's not. Hopefully, God, man, wouldn't it be amazing if it's good news? I just don't believe it. All right, did they correct this thing with the book yet so I can give you guys the link? They put the wrong polling firm, not on the book, on a part of the area. You know what I mean? I guess I could just give it to you guys. I just would very much, it is what it is. I'll put it right now. I'll put it in the comment sections. You can pre-order it now. And just so you guys know, I mean, I personally love the name, and I think you guys will like it too. The new book is called Burn It Down. What the polls say young Americans really want. And it is, the bottom line, my last appeal to boomers, that this is where we're going regardless. And you can either understand, you can continue to resist it, but you have to understand it. And if you don't, we're going to end up with a crazy, crazy AOC, or something of that, along those lines, which would be an utter disaster. It's more than that, but you'll see. A little chock full with data, but written hilariously. Joshua Lysak is my co-author. He's amazingly talented. He's a phenomenal writer, brilliant guy. A lot of guys in this field seek him out, and now I know why. I asked around like, who, co-author. And it was like, unanimous. Oh my God, you got to get Joshua Lysak. He was fantastic. I had a lot of fun working with him. even though it was super, super, like we were on it because we meshed really well together. And we were able to really, make the deadline. So it is available for pre-order right now in paperback, and you guys can get it. Gabe Guardarini wrote the most amazing forward because, of course, like here I'm a millennial, and I'm trying to bridge these two worlds. The boomers and Generation Z and Generation Y, right? And with the millennials, trying to help them understand millennials too. But I mean, as a millennial, I'm like in between. And I'm trying to bridge them. And I'm like, you know what? For a forward, we're going to need Generation Y or Z or something, right? Obviously. And you have to, one isn't going to be able to do it, right? And Gabe was the perfect selection. And from part in the country, Ohio, of that age, is a rising TPUSA star. And you guys will love this forward. I mean, what he submitted was above and beyond my expectations, and I am a picky dude. Okay, so I was like blown away. I'm like so happy and so frankly honored that he wrote the forward for it. It's really good. It's exactly how how do I get somebody to tee up this book the way I need it? Like I need it to be teed up a certain way. Man, he knocked it out of the park. It's so good. So good. It's because of the way the book opens. I'm like, man, I really need somebody to lay it out like this from that point of view. Couldn't have asked for better. All right. With that in mind, I'm going to kick rocks here. Don't forget, I got a lot of you watching right now. Follow the gram at peoples_pundit on Instagram. All right. The link is actually in every video description. Instagram. I'm not even talking about X and Truth until I get my Instagram to a respectable place. This is humiliating. Instagram. All right. Of course, the best place to follow me is on Locals, which is right below peoplespundit.locals.com, peoplespundit.locals.com. All right. Locals, we'll start to peek at the polling soon here from Sunday and today, which has been firing off already. We'll take a peek at it a little bit. Wednesday, we'll have Joe Kent on. He's coming on basically right at the top of the hour. So get ready for that. I will do a very, very short monologue, and then we'll get into it so we can take advantage of all the time that we have with him. What else? I feel like I'm missing something else. I don't really know, though. If I do, I will let you know and put it out on my social. Of course, if it was that important, if it was that imminent, I would be able to tell you right now, but it's not. Let me go and find out what in the Sam hell is going on. All right. Nothing but love for you guys as always. Hope you have a great Monday. See you tomorrow. Locals, see you later. Thanks for watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. Don't forget to like and share the videos. Like and share. All right, I'm out. Wednesday, Joe Kent.